Close your eyes and let the glow of the screen fade gently into the background. Tonight, we're walking through decades of animation, voice work, and stories that shaped childhoods across the world. Have you ever wondered about the quiet moments behind the cameras, the choices that nearly changed everything, or the details hidden in plain sight across over 1,000 episodes? We're about to explore 150 facts from the Pokemon anime that most viewers never knew existed, each one a gentle thread woven through this beloved series. So settle in, let your mind wander through memories of Saturday mornings and after school adventures, and let these stories carry you softly toward rest. The Pokemon anime first aired in Japan on April 1st, 1997, and when it reached American shores 2 years later, it sparked a phenomenon that would define an entire generation. What many don't realize is that the English dub was produced by a company called 4Kids Entertainment for the first 8 seasons, and the voice actors working on those early episodes often recorded their lines in small studios in New York City. The recording sessions were intimate affairs, with actors sometimes voicing multiple characters in a single episode, switching between heroes and villains with only moments to adjust their performance. Veronica Taylor, who voiced Ash Ketchum for the first 8 seasons, has shared in interviews that she and her fellow cast members would often stay late after sessions, discussing the emotional beats of episodes and making sure their performances felt genuine despite the fantastical setting. This dedication created a warmth in those early episodes that resonated deeply with viewers who were discovering this world for the first time. If you're enjoying this gentle journey through animation history, go ahead and hit subscribe so more of these calm explorations can find you when you need them most. Now, let's continue drifting through these stories. The decision to cast Veronica Taylor as Ash was not immediate. The producers auditioned dozens of young actors, searching for someone who could capture both the enthusiasm and vulnerability of a 10-year-old setting out on an impossible dream. Taylor's performance brought a sincerity to Ash that made him feel like a real kid rather than just an animated character, and her voice became synonymous with the series for millions of viewers. When 4Kids Entertainment lost the licensing rights to Pokémon in 2006, the entire main cast was recast, a decision that shocked fans and created what's now known as the Pokemon USA recasting controversy. Sarah Natasheni took over the role of Ash, and while many fans initially resisted the change, Natasheni has now voiced Ash for far longer than Taylor did, bringing her own interpretation to the character across multiple generations and regions. The Japanese voice cast, however, has remained largely consistent throughout the series' entire run. Rika Matsumoto has voiced Ash, known as Satoshi in Japan, since the very first episode, and her performance has evolved alongside the character, maturing in subtle ways while maintaining the core spirit that defined him from the beginning. Matsumoto has spoken about how voicing Ash became a part of her identity, and she's attended countless events worldwide, always greeted by fans who grew up hearing her voice every week. The consistency of the Japanese cast created a different viewing experience from the English version, where changes in voice actors marked distinct eras of the show. Eric Stewart voiced both Brock and James in the English dub for the first 8 seasons, a feat that required him to shift between Brock's calm, reliable tone and James's theatrical, often comedic delivery. Stewart has mentioned in interviews that he based James's voice partially on old Hollywood actors, giving him an exaggerated, almost Shakespearean quality that made Team Rocket's schemes feel more like performance art than genuine villainy. When Stewart was replaced in the recasting, fans noted how different James sounded, as the new voice actor, Jimmy Zoppi, brought a slightly less theatrical interpretation to the character. Rachel Lillis voiced both Misty and Jessie in the early seasons. Another example of the small pool of voice actors 4Kids used for the English dub. Lillis brought a sharp, confident energy to Misty that made her feel like Ash's equal rather than just a sidekick, and her performance as Jessie captured the character's strange combination of competence and chaos. When Lillis passed away in August of 2024, the Pokemon community mourned deeply, sharing memories of how her voice had been a constant presence in their childhoods. Her work on the series spanned 8 seasons and touched millions of lives, and her legacy in the anime community remains profound. Maddie Blaustein, who voiced Meowth in the English dub, brought a distinct New York accent to the character that became one of the most recognizable voices in the entire series. Blaustein was one of the first openly transgender voice actors in anime, and her work on Pokémon helped pave the way for greater representation in the industry. Her portrayal of Meowth gave the character depth beyond comic relief, making him sympathetic and occasionally heartbreaking, especially in episodes that explored his backstory. When Blaustein passed away in 2008, the role was taken over by Jimmy Zoppi, who maintained the accent and tone that Blaustein had established. The anime's first episode, titled Pokemon I Choose You in English, almost had a very different opening. In the original Japanese version, the episode began with a much longer sequence showing Professor Oak explaining the world of Pokemon to viewers, but this was significantly shortened in the English dub to get to Ash's story more quickly. The original opening was meant to ease Japanese children into this new world, assuming they had no prior knowledge of the games, but by the time the anime reached America, the games had already introduced many viewers to the concept, so the exposition felt unnecessary. The episode where Ash first meets Misty, also in that first episode, established a dynamic that would carry through the entire original series. Misty's bike being destroyed by Pikachu's Thundershock created the narrative reason for Hisser to follow Ash, but it also set up a running gag that would repeat with later female companions. May's bike was also destroyed in her first episode with Ash, as was Dawn's, creating a pattern that fans began to expect. Interestingly, this gag was deliberately broken with Iris, who never had a bike, and Serena, whose bike remained intact, showing how the writers were aware of their own tropes and chose when to subvert them. Pikachu's voice has been performed by Ikue Otani in both the Japanese and English versions since the very beginning, making her one of the only voice actors to appear in every version of the anime worldwide. Otani doesn't speak during recording sessions in the traditional sense. Instead, she performs Pikachu's name in various emotional inflections, creating a language of Pikachu sounds that somehow communicates complex feelings. She's described the process as almost meditative, requiring her to channel pure emotion without words, and her performance has become so iconic that it's impossible to imagine Pikachu sounding any other way. The anime's art style has evolved dramatically over its run, with the early episodes featuring a rougher, more hand drawn aesthetic compared to the cleaner, more digitally polished look of later seasons. The shift to digital animation happened gradually, starting around the Advanced Generation series, and while it allowed for more consistent quality and smoother movement, some fans miss the organic feel of the hand painted cells from the early years. The character designs have also changed, with Ash's appearance being updated multiple times to match the current generation's art style, though his core design elements, like his cap and jacket colors, have remained recognizable. The fourth episode of the anime, titled Challenge of the Samurai in English, was almost banned in several countries due to its title and imagery. The episode featured a character dressed as a samurai, wielding a sword, and engaging in battle with Ash. Some international broadcasters were concerned about the depiction of weapons and traditional Japanese culture, but ultimately, the episode aired with minimal edits. This was one of many early instances where cultural differences created challenges for the localization team, who had to balance preserving the Japanese elements that made the show unique with making it accessible to global audiences. One of the most infamous banned episodes is Electric Soldier Porygon, the 38th episode of the original series. This episode aired on December 16th, 1997 in Japan, and featured a sequence where Pikachu used Thunderbolt to destroy incoming missiles, creating rapidly flashing red and blue lights on screen. This sequence triggered photosensitive epileptic seizures in approximately 685 Japanese children, with many being hospitalized. The incident was so severe that it made international news, and the anime went on a 4-month hiatus while the incident was investigated and new broadcasting guidelines were established. The episode has never aired again anywhere in the world, and as a result of this incident, Porygon and its evolved forms, Porygon 2 and Porygon Z, have barely appeared in the anime since, despite the fact that Pikachu was actually responsible for the flashing lights. It's an unfortunate legacy for a Pokemon that had nothing inherently wrong with its design. Following the Porygon incident, the anime industry in Japan established strict guidelines about flashing lights and rapid color changes in animation. These guidelines, while never legally mandated, were widely adopted across all anime productions to prevent similar incidents. The Pokemon anime itself became much more cautious about its visual effects, dimming bright sequences and avoiding certain color combinations that could potentially trigger seizures. This incident fundamentally changed how anime was produced and broadcast, creating a legacy that extended far beyond Pokemon itself. The episode titled The Legend of Dratini was banned in most countries outside of Japan due to its prominent use of firearms. In this episode, the Safari Zone warden repeatedly points a gun at Ash and other characters and even fires it at Team Rocket. While this type of imagery was more acceptable in Japanese children's programming, international broadcasters deemed it too violent for their audiences. The ban created a significant plot hole in the English dub because this was the episode where Ash caught the 30 taros in the Safari Zone, a fact that was referenced in later episodes but never shown. English speaking viewers spent years confused about how Ash suddenly had a herd of taros, as the episode explaining it was never aired. Beauty and the Beach, another banned episode, was originally skipped in the English dub due to a scene where James wears inflatable breasts as part of a beach beauty contest. The episode was eventually dubbed years later with that scene removed, but then banned again, creating a complicated history of censorship and reconsideration. The episode's treatment reflects the different cultural attitudes toward gender expression and comedy between Japan and Western countries during the late 90s and early 2000s. Several episodes featuring Jinx prominently were pulled from rotation in Western countries after concerns were raised about the Pokemon's design resembling racist caricatures. Jinx originally had black skin and large lips, which some viewers found reminiscent of blackface imagery. Game Freak responded by changing Jinx's skin color to purple in all future appearances, but episodes that had already aired with the original design were removed from rotation. Holiday Hijinks, an episode that featured Jinx as a central character, was among the banned episodes, as were The Ice Cave, and several others where Jinx appeared even briefly. The controversy around Jinx's design sparked important conversations about representation and cultural sensitivity in media aimed at children. An episode from the Sun and Moon series titled A Touchdown of Friendship was never aired outside of Japan because it featured Ash painting his face black to disguise himself as a Passimian. While the intent was innocent, Ash was trying to blend in with a group of Passimian to help them. The visual resemblance to blackface led to the decision not to air the episode internationally. This incident showed how the anime was still navigating cultural sensitivities even decades into its run. As you're listening tonight, wherever you are in the world, I'd love to know what brought you here. Drop a comment and let me know what memories these anime stories are stirring up for you, whether it's Saturday mornings with cereal or afternoons after school. Your presence here makes this journey feel a little less solitary. The two-part episode, Team Rocket versus Team Plasma, was scheduled to air in March of 2011, but was postponed indefinitely due to the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan just days before the planned broadcast. The episodes featured scenes of destruction and explosions that would have been deeply insensitive to air so soon after the disaster. While there were initial plans to air the episodes later, they were eventually skipped entirely, and the plot was rewritten to accommodate their absence. In 2023, the scripts for these unaired episodes were leaked online, finally revealing what would have happened in this lost chapter of the anime. The episode Shaking Island Battle, which was supposed to introduce the move Earthquake prominently, was also pulled due to a major earthquake in Japan shortly before its scheduled air date in 2004. The episode has never been shown anywhere in the world, and as a result, moves like earthquake, fissure, and magnitude were used very sparingly in the anime afterward, out of respect for earthquake victims and sensitivity to natural disasters that frequently affect Japan. The original series opening theme, I Wanna Be the Very Best, became one of the most recognizable songs of the late 90s. The English version was composed by John Siegler and John Loeffler, with vocals by Jason Page, and it captured the adventurous spirit of the series perfectly. Page has shared that he recorded the vocals in just one or two takes, and the song was initially meant to be temporary, but it resonated so strongly with the audiences that it became permanently associated with the franchise. The opening has been covered countless times, parodied, and referenced in popular culture, cementing its place as a defining piece of late 90s nostalgia. The Japanese opening themes changed much more frequently than the English ones, with nearly every major story arc getting its own unique opening song. These songs were often performed by popular Japanese artists and released as singles that charted well in Japan. The most iconic Japanese opening is arguably Masashi Pokemon Master, the very first opening theme, which has been reused and remixed multiple times throughout the series' run as a callback to the anime's origins. The anime's director for the first five movies and many early episodes was Kunihiko Yuyama, whose vision largely defined the look and feel of the series. Yuyama brought a cinematic quality to the movies, especially with sweeping landscapes and emotional moments that elevated them above typical children's television. His work on Pokémon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, is considered some of his finest, creating a film that explored themes of identity, purpose, and what it means to be alive, surprisingly deep topics for a movie aimed at children. Takeshi Shudo, the head writer for the first seasons of the anime, had a much darker and more philosophical vision for the series than what ultimately made it to screen. Shudo wrote extensively about his original plans in a series of novels published later in his life, revealing that he wanted to explore more mature themes about the ethics of keeping Pokemon in Pokeballs, the nature of consciousness in these creatures, and the societal implications of a world where children regularly engage in what amounts to organized fighting with their pets. Many of his ideas were softened or rejected by the Pokemon Company executives, who wanted the series to remain lighthearted and focused on adventure rather than moral ambiguity. Shudo's frustration with these limitations is documented in his writings, though he remained proud of the work that did make it to screen. He passed away in 2010, leaving behind a legacy of thoughtful storytelling within the constraints of a commercial franchise. The Pokemon movies are known for featuring legendary and mythical Pokemon prominently, often introducing new species before they appeared in the games. Mew's first major appearance was in Pokemon the first movie, and Lugia made its debut in Pokemon the movie 2000 before appearing in the Gold and Silver games. This pattern continued with Celebi, Jirachi, Deoxys, and many others, making the movies important for fans who wanted to see these rare Pokemon in action before they could catch them in games. The movies often tied into distribution events where fans could receive these special Pokemon for their games by attending theatrical screenings, creating a direct connection between the anime and the gaming experience, Pokemon. The first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, was a massive commercial success when it was released in North America in November of 1999. It grossed over $85 million domestically and became the highest grossing anime film in American history at that time. The movie's emotional climax, where Ash is turned to stone and revived by the tears of the Pokemon, became one of the most memorable moments in the entire franchise. Many fans who saw the movie as children still describe that scene as one of their first experiences with genuine emotional devastation in media. The English dub of Mewtwo Strikes Back made significant changes from the Japanese original. The most notable difference was the addition of dialogue explaining that the tears of Pokemon have special life giving properties, a concept not present in the Japanese version. The Japanese version relied more heavily on visual storytelling and left the revival somewhat ambiguous and mystical, while the English version wanted to provide a clearer explanation for younger audiences. The English dub also added exposition about Mewtwo blocking the Pokemon's special attacks during the climactic battle, whereas the Japanese version simply showed them fighting physically without explanation. These changes reflect different approaches to storytelling and assumptions about what audiences needed to understand. A prologue to Mewtwo Strikes Back, called The Uncut Story of Mewtwo's Origin, was produced for Japanese audiences but not initially included in the English theatrical release. This prologue showed Mewtwo's creation, its relationship with a young girl named Amber who existed as a clone, and the tragic circumstances of its early life. This context made Mewtwo's anger and existential crisis much more understandable and sympathetic. The prologue was eventually included in later home video releases of the English version, but many American viewers saw the movie without this crucial context, experiencing a somewhat different narrative. The second Pokemon movie, The Power of One, featured Lugia as the central legendary Pokemon and explored environmental themes about the balance of nature. The movie introduced the idea that Lugia's song could calm the legendary birds Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, and this musical element became a significant part of the story. The English dub featured original music by Donna Summer and an orchestral score by Ralph Schuckett that differed significantly from the Japanese version's soundtrack. The movie was less commercially successful than the first film, but is often cited by fans as having a more cohesive story and stronger thematic elements. Pokemon 3 Spell of the Unknown, also known as Lord of the Unknown Tower in Japan, explored themes of grief and imagination through the character of Molly, a young girl who uses the reality warping Unknown to create an idealized fantasy world after her father disappears. The movie featured Entei as a father figure created by Molly's wishes, leading to a confrontation with Ash when Entei kidnaps his mother to serve as Molly's replacement parent. The movie's exploration of loss and the dangers of retreating into fantasy resonated with older viewers, while still providing the action and spectacle expected from a Pokemon film. The fourth movie, Celebi Voice of the Forest, had a unique production challenge because it needed to introduce the character of Sam, a young trainer from the past, and later reveal that Sam was actually a young Professor Oak. In the Japanese version, this reveal was subtle enough that some viewers missed it, so the English dub added an additional scene at the end where the connection was made explicitly clear. This scene was actually animated specifically for the English version at 4Kids' request, making it one of the rare instances where new animation was created for a dub. Pokemon heroes Latios and Latias, the fifth movie, took place in Alto Mare, a city inspired by Venice, Italy. The movie's watercolor like art style gave it a unique aesthetic compared to other films in the series, and the ambiguous ending where either Latias or her human friend Bianca kisses Ash became one of the most debated moments in the franchise. Director Yuyama intentionally left the identity of the girl ambiguous, wanting viewers to interpret the scene for themselves, and fans have argued about it ever since. Jirachi Wishmaker, the sixth movie, introduced the mythical Pokemon Jirachi, who awakens for only 7 days every 1,000 years. The movie explored themes of friendship and sacrifice, with Jirachi forming a bond with Max before having to return to its long slumber. The ending, where Max says goodbye to Jirachi, was designed to be bittersweet, teaching young viewers about the temporary nature of some relationships and the importance of cherishing time with friends. Destiny Deoxys, the seventh movie, featured one of the most intense action sequences in any Pokemon movie, with an extraterrestrial Deoxys attacking a high-tech city and Rayquaza arriving to defend its territory. The movie explored the idea that not all Pokemon conflicts are about good versus evil. Sometimes they're just misunderstandings between powerful beings with different needs. The resolution, where the characters realize Deoxys was simply searching for its friend, another Deoxys trapped inside a meteorite, added an emotional layer to what could have been a straightforward monster battle film. Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, the eighth movie, was particularly significant because it was the last film produced by 4Kids Entertainment before they lost the Pokemon license. The movie introduced the concept of aura, a life energy that some humans and Pokemon can sense and manipulate, and revealed that Ash has latent aura abilities. This detail was occasionally referenced in later episodes of the anime, making it one of the few movie elements that carried over into the main series continuity. Lucario's sacrifice at the end of the movie, where it uses its remaining life force to save Mew and the Tree of Beginning, remains one of the most emotionally impactful conclusions to any Pokemon film. If these stories are bringing you comfort as you wind down for the night, the subscribe button is there whenever you're ready. There's something peaceful about knowing more of these gentle explorations will be waiting for you. The Mastermind of Mirage. Pokémon was a special television movie that aired in 2006 to celebrate the anime's 10th anniversary. It was notable for being the worst Pokemon production to feature the new English voice cast after the recasting controversy. The initial version was poorly received due to the unfamiliar voices and some awkward performances as the new actors were still finding their footing. The special was later redubbed, with the cast having more experience, and this improved version was included on later home video releases. The existence of two versions of the same special reflects the challenging transition period the English dub went through. The Rise of Darkrai, the first movie of the Diamond and Pearl era, returned to exploring deeper themes, this time about misunderstanding and prejudice. Darkrai, a Pokemon feared for its ability to cause nightmares, was actually trying to protect the town of Alamos from the battling legendary Pokemon Dialga and Palkia. The movie's message about not judging beings by their appearance or reputation resonated with audiences, and Darkrai's sacrifice to save the town made it a sympathetic figure despite its dark typing and powers. Giratina and the Sky Warrior served as a direct sequel to The Rise of Darkrai, featuring Giratina seeking revenge against Dialga for damaging its home, the reverse world. The movie explored parallel dimensions and the consequences of legendary Pokemon battles on both the physical world and alternate realities. The character of Zero, the movie's antagonist, was a rare instance of a purely human villain in a Pokemon movie, with motivations based on scientific obsession rather than any grand scheme involving Pokemon control. Arceus and the Jewel of Life completed the Diamond and Pearl movie trilogy, bringing back Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina alongside Arceus, the supposed creator of the Pokemon universe. The movie dealt with time travel and attempted to correct a historical betrayal that had turned Arceus against humanity. The scope of this film, dealing with the creation deity of the entire Pokemon world, represented the franchise's willingness to engage with increasingly mythological and cosmic themes in its storytelling. Zoroark, Master of Illusions, introduced the illusion fox Pokemon Zoroark and its pre-evolution Zorua, who could create incredibly realistic illusions. The movie explored the relationship between Zoroark and Zorua as a mother protecting its child, adding an element of family drama to the typical legendary Pokemon conflict. The movie's exploration of illusion versus reality and the lengths a parent will go to protect their child gave it emotional depth beyond the usual adventure narrative. White Victini and Zekrom and Black Victini and Reshiram were released simultaneously in Japan in 2011, marking the first time two versions of a Pokemon movie were produced. The movies told the same basic story, but featured different legendary Pokemon depending on which version viewers watched, mirroring the dual version structure of the black and white games. This experiment was not repeated in later years, as it proved logistically challenging and split the audience rather than doubling it. Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice featured Kyurem, the final member of the Unova legendary dragon trio, and explored themes about what it means to be a warrior versus a hero. The Sword of Justice Quartet, Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion, and Keldeo, represented different aspects of honor and duty, with Keldeo learning that true strength comes from protecting others rather than simply being powerful. The movie's action sequences showcased Kyurem's various forms, giving fans a chance to see its powered up versions on screen. Genesect and the Legend Awakened introduced a group of artificially enhanced ancient Pokémon, the Genesect, and featured a different Mewtwo than the one from the first movie. This female Mewtwo, confirmed by the Japanese version's voice actress, confused many fans who assumed it was the same individual, but the movie implied that multiple Mewtwo had been created by Team Rocket. The decision to use a different Mewtwo rather than bringing back the original was controversial, as many fans wanted to see what had happened to the character from the first movie. Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction marked a shift in the movie's approach, with smaller scale stories focused more on character moments than world threatening crises. Diancie's journey to master its powers and protect its home felt more personal than the cosmic battles of previous films, and the movie's emphasis on beauty and transformation aligned with the fairy type introduction in the X and Y games. Hoopa and the Clash of Ages brought together multiple legendary Pokemon through Hoopa's ability to summon beings from different locations using its rings. The movie featured an unprecedented number of legendaries on screen simultaneously, essentially serving as a celebration of the franchise's mythological creatures. The chaos of having so many powerful Pokemon in one place created spectacular action sequences, though some critics felt the movie prioritized spectacle over coherent storytelling. Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel explored the relationship between a Pokemon who despised humans and Ash, who was temporarily bound to Volcanion through a mechanical device. The forced proximity allowed the movie to explore themes of prejudice and learning to see beyond initial assumptions. Volcanion's gradual warming toward Ash and humans in general provided character development rarely seen in these self contained movie narratives. I Choose You was a radical departure for the movie series, retelling Ash's origin story in an alternate continuity separate from the main anime. The movie reimagined the early episodes with modern animation and a different selection of Pokemon, while maintaining the core emotional beats of Ash's journey. The ending, which featured Pokemon speaking human language in a dream sequence, was controversial among fans, but reflected the filmmaker's desire to explore the bonds between trainers and their Pokemon in new ways. The Power of Us continued the alternate continuity started in I Choose You, telling an original story in a new city with a cast of characters unconnected to the main anime. The movie focused on community and how diverse individuals with their own struggles can come together during a crisis. The art style featured unique character designs, more varied than the typical anime aesthetic, giving the film a distinctive look. Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution was a full CGI remake of the first movie, released in 2019 to coincide with the franchise's anniversary. The decision to remake the film in CGI was divisive, with some fans appreciating the updated visuals while others missed the hand drawn animation of the original. The remake followed the original's story very closely, but included elements from the Japanese version that had been cut from the English dub, giving international audiences a more complete version of the narrative. Secrets of the Jungle the most recent theatrical film at the time of the anime's conclusion with Ash, told the story of Coco, a human boy raised by Zerude in the jungle. The movie explored themes of identity and belonging, asking questions about what defines family and where someone truly belongs when they exist between two worlds. The environmental themes and focus on the relationship between humans and nature felt like a return to the tone of The Power of One, bringing the movie series full circle in some ways. Throughout the anime's run, certain episodes have become particularly memorable for fans, not because of any controversy, but because of their storytelling quality. Bye Bye Butterfree from the original series was one of the first episodes to make viewers cry, as Ash released his Butterfree so it could mate with a pink Butterfree and migrate with its flock. The episode taught children about letting go of those you love so they can pursue their own happiness, a surprisingly mature message for a show primarily about collecting creatures. The episode Charmander the Stray Pokémon introduced one of Ash's most iconic team members and explored themes of neglect and abandonment. Charmander was left on a rock by its original trainer, Damien, who deemed it too weak, and the episode showed Charmander's loyalty to Damien even as its tail flame grew dangerously weak in the rain. Ash's rescue of Charmander and his fury at Damien's cruelty established Ash as someone who truly cared about Pokemon beyond their battle potential. Charmander's evolution into Charmeleon and then Charizard, and its initially rebellious nature, provided character development spanning multiple seasons. Charizard's evolution and subsequent refusal to obey Ash became one of the anime's longest running story arcs. The disobedient Charizard represented the consequences of evolving Pokemon too quickly before building a proper bond, teaching viewers that power without trust is worthless. The episode Charizard Chills, where Charizard nearly freezes to death and realizes Ash cares enough to save it despite its disobedience, marked the turning point in their relationship. From that point on, Charizard became one of Ash's most reliable partners, though it was eventually left at the Carasific Valley to train with other Charizard and improve its skills. Pikachu's Goodbye was an episode that seemed to be setting up Pikachu's departure from Ash when they encountered a group of wild Pikachu. Ash nearly left Pikachu with its own kind, believing it would be happier, but Pikachu chose to stay with Ash, reaffirming their bond. The episode was emotionally manipulative in the best way, making viewers believe the show's mascot might actually leave before revealing that their connection was too strong to break. This episode aired during the 4-month hiatus following the Porygon incident and was seen as a reassuring return to form for the series. The episode Pokemon Sensation featured Ash's gym battle with Erica in Celadon City and was notable for Ash cross-dressing to sneak into the gym after being banned for insulting Erica's perfume shop. While this might seem like just a comedic episode, it actually showed Ash's determination and willingness to do whatever it takes to achieve his goals, even if it meant temporarily sacrificing his pride. The episode was banned in South Korea due to its references to Japanese culture and traditional clothing, as South Korea had strict policies about Japanese cultural content in media during that time period. The Orange Islands arc introduced Tracy Sketchit as a temporary replacement for Brock, who stayed behind with Professor Ivy. Tracy was a Pokemon watcher who focused on observing and sketching Pokemon rather than training them, providing a different perspective on human Pokemon interactions. While Tracy is often overlooked compared to more prominent companions, his presence helped fill the role of older, more knowledgeable companion that Brock had provided. When Brock returned and Tracy stayed with Professor Oak as an assistant, it felt like a natural conclusion to his character arc, as he'd found his place in the Pokemon world, even if it wasn't as a traveling companion. The GS Ball was one of the anime's most mysterious ongoing plot threads during the Orange Islands and early Johto arcs. Professor Oak sent Ash to the Orange Islands specifically to retrieve this strange Pokeball that couldn't be opened or transmitted through the usual PC system. The ball glowed with mysterious energy and seemed important, leading fans to speculate endlessly about its contents. The original plan, revealed years later, was for the GS ball to contain Celebi, which would have tied into the fourth movie. However, when Celebi was instead featured prominently in that movie, the anime writers dropped the GS ball subplot entirely. Ash simply gave it to Kurt, the Pokeball maker, and it was never mentioned again, becoming one of the anime's most infamous loose ends. The introduction of the Johto region brought new dynamics to the main cast. Ash's journey through Johto was marked by a shift toward more episodic storytelling, with less emphasis on the overarching goal of reaching the Pokemon League and more focus on individual encounters and smaller adventures. This change in pacing divided fans, with some enjoying the more relaxed exploration of the Pokemon world and others frustrated by the slower progress toward major milestones. Misty's departure at the end of the Johto arc was handled delicately, with her receiving word that her sisters were leaving the Cerulean Gym and she needed to return to take over as its sole gym leader. The episode Gotta Catch Ya later showed Misty and Brock both leaving Ash's group, with Misty finally getting her bike back repaired. The emotional goodbye between Ash and Misty, where they promised to meet again someday, felt like the end of an era. Many fans who had grown up watching the original trio together found the separation difficult, and Misty's absence in subsequent series was keenly felt. The Advanced Generation series marked a fresh start with new companions May and Max and a new region in Hoenn. May's introduction as someone who initially didn't particularly like Pokemon and only became a trainer to explore the world was refreshing compared to the Pokemon obsessed characters viewers were used to. Her gradual discovery of Pokemon contests and her decision to become a coordinator gave her a clear goal separate from Ash's badge collecting, allowing for parallel story arcs that complemented each other. May's journey from hesitant trainer to confident coordinator across Hoenn and Kanto was one of the better developed character arcs in the series. Max, May's younger brother, provided a different dynamic as a companion who couldn't yet be a trainer due to his age. His role as the knowledgeable supporter who had studied Pokemon extensively but lacked practical experience created interesting moments where his book knowledge conflicted with the realities of training. Max's dream of someday receiving his own starter, Pokémon, and beginning his journey was relatable to younger viewers who were too young to play the games but could see themselves in his position. The Battle Frontier arc extended Ash's time in Kanto, providing post League content that was unusual for the anime's structure. The Frontier Brains, each with their own specialized battle facilities and unique challenges, gave Ash a variety of opponents that tested different aspects of his skills. The Battle Pyramid's Brandon, who owned legendary Pokemon like Regirock, Regis, and Registeel, represented one of the few instances where a regular human character was shown to have caught and trained legendary Pokemon. May's decision to stay in Kanto for contests while Ash and Brock moved on to Sinnoh was one of the anime's more realistic depictions of friends pursuing different paths. The farewell felt natural rather than forced, acknowledging that their goals had diverged, and it made sense for them to travel separately. May's brief return during the Diamond and Pearl series, where she competed in the Wallace Cup alongside Dawn, was a treat for fans and showcased how much she'd grown as a coordinator. Diamond and Pearl introduced Dawn, whose mother Johanna was a top coordinator, giving Dawn both inspiration and pressure to live up to her mother's legacy. Dawn's catchphrase, "No need to worry," became iconic, representing her optimistic attitude even when things went wrong. Her Piplup's refusal to evolve, despite opportunities to do so, was unusual for the anime, which typically portrayed evolution as an unquestioned good. The episodes exploring why Piplup didn't want to evolve touched on ideas about self acceptance and choosing one's own path. The rivalries in Diamond and Pearl were more developed than in previous series, with Paul serving as a dark mirror to Ash's training philosophy. Paul treated his Pokemon as tools, releasing those he deemed weak and pushing the strong ones ruthlessly. His methods produced powerful Pokemon, forcing Ash to question whether his emphasis on bonds and friendship was actually the best approach. Their eventual battle in the Sinnoh League, where Ash defeated Paul and afterward helped him understand the value of caring for Pokemon, represented the culmination of an ideological conflict spanning the entire series. Dawn's loss in the Grand Festival, where she failed to achieve her goal of becoming top coordinator, was a rare instance of a main character definitively failing at their primary objective. Rather than ending her arc on a triumph, the anime showed Dawn dealing with disappointment and deciding to continue improving for next time. This more realistic outcome respected viewers' intelligence by acknowledging that not every story ends with success, and sometimes the journey matters more than the destination. Brock's departure at the end of Diamond and Pearl felt more final than his previous exits, as he chose to pursue his dream of becoming a Pokemon doctor and enrolled in medical school. His growth from a gym leader with dreams of being a breeder to someone with medical ambitions reflected how people's goals can evolve over time. Brock's absence in the Best Wishes series was noticeable, as he'd been a constant presence for so long, but his exit felt earned rather than arbitrary. The Best Wishes series, corresponding to the Black and White games, took place in Unova and featured a complete refresh of Ash's companion roster. Iris, a girl from the village of dragons with dreams of becoming a dragon master, and Silon, a Pokemon connoisseur who evaluated the compatibility between trainers and their Pokemon, brought different energies to the group. Iris's habit of calling Ash such a kid, despite being around the same age, created a different dynamic than previous companions, while Silent's theatrical personality and tendency to describe everything in culinary terms made him stand out. The Best Wishes series attempted to return to the series' roots by resetting some of Ash's knowledge and having him catch a new team of Pokemon primarily from Unova. This decision was controversial among fans who felt Ash should have retained more of the experience and maturity he'd gained over previous series. The depiction of Ash as somewhat naive again, despite his years of experience, felt like a step backward in his character development. Team Rocket's portrayal in Best Wishes was notably different, with Jesse, James, and Meowth being depicted as more competent and serious threats. They were given actual missions by Giovanni and had several episodes where they succeeded in their objectives, creating genuine tension. While some fans appreciated seeing them as legitimate antagonists, others missed their comedic bungling from earlier series. The balance was eventually restored in later seasons, where they returned to their more comical roles. The episodes that were supposed to feature Team Plasma prominently were those banned due to the earthquake and tsunami, and their absence was felt throughout the series. Team Plasma was eventually introduced much later with a significantly reduced role, and the plot lines that would have developed throughout the season were compressed into just a few episodes. This created a disjointed feel to the series' overarching narrative, as major plot threads were missing or hastily resolved. The XY series, set in the Kalos region, marked a significant visual and tonal shift for the anime. The character designs were updated with sharper, more modern looks, and the animation quality saw a noticeable improvement with more fluid motion and dynamic camera work. Ash's design in particular made him look older and more mature, matching the increased competence he displayed in battles. Serena's introduction as a childhood friend of Ash's was unique among companions, as she was the only one to have a pre existing connection to him. Flashbacks showed a young Ash helping Serena at Professor Oak's summer camp, though Ash himself didn't remember this meeting. Serena's initial crush on Ash and her journey to discover her own goals separate from her interest in him provided a different kind of character arc focused on self discovery and independence. The XY series featured Mega Evolution prominently, with Ash eventually gaining a Lucario that could Mega Evolve. The series dedicated several special episodes to exploring Mega Evolution as a phenomenon, treating it with a level of seriousness and mysticism that made it feel significant rather than just another battle gimmick. The bond required between trainer and Pokemon to achieve Mega Evolution aligned well with the anime's ongoing themes about the importance of trust and connection. Ash's performance in the Kalos League, where he reached the finals and lost in an incredibly close battle, was one of his strongest showings in any regional competition. The battle against Alan, who had been built up as a rival throughout the series, was intense and well animated, with genuine back and forth momentum. While Ash still didn't win the league, his near victory felt like appropriate recognition of his growth as a trainer. Serena's departure was handled with more explicit romantic undertones than any previous companion's goodbye. The scene where she runs back to kiss Ash before leaving, though the actual kiss happens just off screen, was as close as the anime ever came to confirming romantic feelings between Ash and a companion. The ambiguity of whether the kiss actually happened sparked endless debates among fans. The Sun and Moon series represented the most radical departure from the anime's established formula. Set in the tropical Alola region, the series abandoned the traveling format in favor of Ash enrolling in a Pokemon school and staying in one location. This change allowed for more slice of life storytelling and development of a consistent supporting cast, but it also meant no gym battles, as Alola didn't have a traditional gym system. Ash's character design in Sun and Moon was particularly controversial, with a more rounded, cartoonish style that made him look younger and less serious. Some fans felt this design undermined years of character development, while others appreciated the return to a more lighthearted, comedic tone. The animation style prioritized expressiveness and fluidity over detailed character models, resulting in more dynamic battle sequences and comedy, but less visual consistency between episodes. The decision to have Ash finally win a Pokemon League championship in Alola was momentous for the franchise. After over 20 years and multiple league defeats, Ash's victory in the Alola League felt like the culmination of his entire journey. The choice to have this happen in Alola rather than a previous, more traditional region was somewhat unexpected, as some fans had hoped his first major victory would come in a region with a standard 8 gym format. Nevertheless, the victory was celebrated by the fan base and represented a significant milestone in Ash's story. Ash's class at the Pokemon School, Lily, Kiawe, Lana, Sophocles, and Mallow, each had their own distinct personalities and story arcs. Lily's journey from being unable to touch Pokemon due to a traumatic childhood experience to becoming a confident trainer provided one of the series' most compelling character developments. Her relationship with her Alolan Vulpix, nicknamed Snowy, showed how patience and trust could overcome even deep seated fears. Journeys, the series that followed Sun and Moon, attempted to combine elements from all previous series while celebrating the franchise's history. Ash was joined by Go, a new companion, with the goal of catching every Pokemon species and eventually catching Mew. Go's approach to catching, which involved attempting to capture nearly every Pokemon he encountered without necessarily training them, created an interesting contrast with Ash's more selective, bond-focused method. Some viewers found Go's success rate unrealistic, as he caught numerous rare and powerful Pokemon with seemingly little effort. The World Coronation series provided an overarching structure to journeys, with trainers worldwide ranked in a competitive system culminating in battles between the 8 strongest trainers. This tournament format allowed the anime to bring back characters and champions from previous regions, giving fans nostalgic reunions while advancing the current story. Ash's climb through the rankings, eventually reaching the Masters 8, demonstrated how far he'd come from the rookie trainer who struggled to earn his first badge in Kanto. The Masters 8 tournament featured battles between regional champions and other legendary trainers, showcasing some of the highest stakes battles in the anime's history. Ash's battle against Cynthia, the Sinnoh champion, who had been built up as one of the strongest trainers in the world since Diamond and Pearl, was particularly significant. Defeating her represented Ash overcoming one of the anime's most formidable opponents and validated his position among the world's elite trainers. The final battle against Leon, the reigning world champion, was the culmination of Ash's entire journey across all regions. The battle showcased Pokémon from throughout Ash's history, including Pikachu, Charizard, and others who had been with him at different points in his adventure. Pikachu's victory against Leon's Charizard in the final moments of the battle was symbolic, showing that Ash's very first partner Pokemon was with him at his greatest triumph, just as it had been at the beginning of his journey. Ash's decision to separate from Pikachu temporarily so they could both pursue different goals in the rainbow and the Pokemon Master marked the end of his story as the anime's protagonist. The final episode showed Ash and Pikachu reuniting and recommitting to their journey together, but the series itself moved on to new protagonists with Horizons featuring Liko and Roy. This conclusion felt appropriate, allowing Ash to remain in the world, but stepping aside so new stories could be told. The transition to Horizons represented the franchise's willingness to finally move beyond Ash after 25 years. Liko and Roy's adventures with the Rising Volt Tacklers, a group of Pokemon researchers and travelers, established a different premise focused more on discovery and mystery than on gym battles and leagues. The introduction of Terapagos, an ancient legendary Pokemon connected to Liko's pendant, provided an overarching mystery to drive the narrative forward. Throughout the anime's entire run, the relationship between Ash and Pikachu remained its emotional core. Their bond, established in the very first episode, when Pikachu finally trusted Ash enough to defend him from the Spearow flock, deepened across countless adventures. Pikachu's refusal to evolve, despite opportunities to do so, was never fully explained, but was accepted as part of its character. Pikachu was perfect as it was, and evolution wouldn't make it better, just different. The anime's handling of Pokemon death and serious injury was always careful, rarely showing Pokemon dying on screen, but occasionally acknowledging that death was a part of this world. The Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town, a graveyard for Pokemon, appeared in early episodes, and the movie about Latios featured what was essentially the death of a legendary Pokemon. These moments of genuine loss added weight to the stakes, reminding viewers that for all its brightness and optimism, the Pokemon world contained real dangers and sadness. The anime's influence on the games cannot be overstated. Many elements that originated in the anime were later incorporated into the games, including Pokemon following their trainers outside of Pokeballs, The prominence of certain characters, like Jesse and James, and the general tone of adventure and friendship over mere collection and competition. The games and anime exist in a symbiotic relationship, each influencing the other and creating a richer universe together than either could achieve alone. Voice direction in the anime evolved significantly over time, with newer series featuring more naturalistic performances compared to the sometimes exaggerated deliveries of early episodes. This shift reflected changes in both anime dubbing practices and audience expectations as viewers became more accustomed to subtle voice work that matched realistic emotional beats. The music of the Pokémon anime, composed primarily by Shinji Miyazaki for the Japanese version, created an audio identity as recognizable as the visual one. Themes like the Pokemon Center, healing music, the Team Rocket motto theme, and various battle tracks became embedded in fan consciousness. The English versions often replaced Japanese background music with original compositions, creating different viewing experiences between versions, but both approaches successfully enhanced the storytelling. The cultural impact of the Pokemon anime extended far beyond entertainment. It introduced Japanese culture to international audiences, featured positive messages about friendship and perseverance, and created a shared experience for millions of children worldwide. The phenomenon of Pokemania in the late 90s and early 2000s, where Pokemon dominated playgrounds, toy stores, and conversations, was driven significantly by the anime's accessibility and appeal. Looking back across the anime's history, from Ash's departure from Pallet Town with a disobedient Pikachu to his final victory as world champion, the series has told a story about growth, friendship, and never giving up on your dreams. It's been a journey of over 1,100 episodes, 23 movies, and countless special episodes and short films, all building a world that feels alive and full of possibilities. The details we've explored tonight, the voice actors who brought characters to life, the episodes that were banned or altered, the movies that made us cry, the companions who came and went, and the small production decisions that shaped the series all contributed to something larger than the sum of its parts. The Pokemon anime taught generations of viewers that it's okay to fail as long as you keep trying, that the bonds you form along the way matter more than the destination, and that believing in yourself and your friends can overcome any obstacle. These lessons, delivered through the adventures of a boy and his electric mouse, resonated across cultures and languages, creating a truly global phenomenon. Team Rocket's trio of Jesse, James, and Meowth have been constant presences throughout the anime's history, appearing in nearly every episode and all 23 theatrical films. Their motto, prepare for trouble and make it double, to protect the world from devastation, to unite all peoples within our nation, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above, became one of the most recognizable pieces of dialogue in the entire franchise. The motto evolved over time, gaining additional lines and variations depending on the region and circumstances, but its core structure remained familiar and comforting in its predictability. Jesse's backstory, revealed gradually across multiple episodes, painted a picture of a difficult childhood marked by poverty and abandonment. Her mother, Miyamoto, was a high ranking Team Rocket agent who left on a mission to record the voice of Mew when Jessie was only 5 years old. Miyamoto never returned from this expedition, presumed to have perished in the Andes Mountains, leaving young Jessie to be placed in an impoverished foster home. The episode Ignorance is Blissey revealed that Jessie grew up so poor that there were times when she had to eat snow because there wasn't enough food. Years later, when stuck in a blizzard, Jessie described eating snow as one of her few happy childhood memories, a comment that spoke volumes about how difficult her early years must have been. Jessie's path to Team Rocket was circuitous and filled with failures. She attended Pokémon Tech, a prestigious school for trainers, but flunked out due to poor grades. She later attempted to become a Pokémon nurse, enrolling in a school where she befriended a Chansey who helped her through her studies. However, she ultimately failed to graduate from nursing school as well, another dream deferred. Throughout her youth, Jessie displayed a talent for Pokemon training and a fierce determination, but circumstances and bad luck repeatedly prevented her from achieving her goals through legitimate means. Team Rocket offered her something she'd never had, a place where she belonged, teammates who wouldn't abandon her, and a purpose, even if that purpose was criminal. James's background could not have been more different from Jessie's. The episode Holy Matrimony revealed that James came from an incredibly wealthy family, living in a mansion with servants and every material comfort imaginable. However, his childhood was just as unhappy as Jessie's, though for entirely different reasons. James's parents arranged for him to marry a woman named Jezebel, a controlling, domineering person who wanted to mold James into her idea of the perfect aristocrat. When James realized that marrying Jezebel would mean losing his freedom and becoming someone he wasn't, he ran away from home, leaving behind his wealth, his inheritance, and even his beloved Growlithe, a Pokemon he'd raised since childhood. The episode The Treasure Is All Mine showed James returning to his family estate after his parents' supposed death, only to discover it was a ruse to lure him back for another marriage attempt with Jezebel. The trauma of this arranged marriage haunted James throughout the series, representing the oppressive expectations of his former life. His decision to remain with Team Rocket rather than claim his inheritance demonstrated that he valued his freedom and friendships with Jessie and Meowth more than wealth or social status. James's character arc explored the idea that privilege without freedom is its own kind of poverty, and that sometimes the family you choose matters more than the family you're born into. Meowth's backstory, told in the episode Go West Young Meowth, was perhaps the most heartbreaking of the trio. As a young Meowth living on the streets, he fell in love with a female Meowth named Meowsy, who belonged to a wealthy owner. Meowsy rejected him because he was just a street Pokemon without class or sophistication. Determined to win her love, Meowth embarked on an almost impossible quest. He taught himself to walk upright and speak human language, believing that becoming more human-like would make him worthy of Meowsy's affection. He succeeded in this incredible feat through sheer determination, becoming the only Pokemon in the main anime continuity capable of human speech. However, when Meowth finally reunited with Meowsy and proudly demonstrated his abilities, she was horrified rather than impressed. She told him that he'd become a freak, neither truly Pokemon nor human, and that she could never love him now. This rejection devastated Meowth and drove him to join Team Rocket, where he hoped to find purpose and perhaps earn enough glory to finally be respected. The tragedy of Meowth's story is that he fundamentally changed who he was to win someone else's approval, only to discover that the person he'd changed for would never accept him. This backstory added unexpected emotional depth to a character who was usually played for comedy. The episode Training Days, part of the Pokemon Chronicles spin off series, showed how Jesse, James, and Meowth first came together as a team. When they were initially assigned to work together, Jesse and James clashed constantly, their vastly different backgrounds creating friction and misunderstanding. Jesse viewed James as a spoiled rich kid who didn't understand hardship, while James found Jesse abrasive and difficult to work with. Meowth served as the mediator, using his unique ability to communicate with both humans and Pokemon to bring the team together. The episode showed their first successful mission together and the moment when they realized they worked well as a unit despite their differences. The bond between Jesse, James, and Meowth deepened over time, evolving from reluctant partnership to genuine friendship and eventually to something resembling family. Multiple episodes showed the trio refusing opportunities to advance in Team Rocket or pursue personal goals if it meant splitting up the team. In The Treasure Is All Mine, James could have claimed his inheritance and lived in comfort, but he chose to remain with his friends. In various episodes where Jesse was offered chances to succeed as a coordinator or James as a gym leader, they ultimately chose their partnership over individual achievement. This loyalty to each other, even when it meant continued failure and hardship, became one of the anime's most consistent themes. The trio's relationship with their Pokemon also revealed their better nature. Unlike other Team Rocket agents who treated Pokemon as mere tools, Jesse and James genuinely cared for their team members. The episode A Poached Ego showed them releasing their Arbok and wheezing so these Pokemon could protect a group of coughing and Ekans from a poacher, sacrificing their partners to ensure their safety. This selfless act, done without hesitation, despite how much they loved their Pokemon, demonstrated that underneath the villainous personas, Jesse and James had good hearts. Their Pokemon teams changed throughout the series as they traveled through different regions. In Kanto and Johto, Jesse used Arbok and later Wobbuffet, who became a permanent fixture through his tendency to pop out of his Pokeball at inopportune moments. James relied on Wheezing and later Victreebel, who would affectionately bite James's head whenever released, creating a running gag. In Hoenn, they added Seviper and Cacnea to their teams. Seviper became Jesse's primary partner, while Cacnea showed an endearing habit of hugging James with its spiny body, causing him pain that he endured because he genuinely loved the Pokemon. Each region brought new team members who added to the trio's dynamics while maintaining the show's comedy and heart. The evolution of Team Rocket's portrayal throughout the series reflected broader changes in the anime's tone and target audience. In the Best Wishes series set in Unova, Jesse and James were depicted as more competent and serious threats, given actual missions by Giovanni and succeeding more frequently. They wore different uniforms, acted more professionally, and posed genuine challenges to Ash and his friends. Some fans appreciated seeing them as legitimate antagonists, but others missed the comedic trio they'd grown attached to over the years. The balance was eventually restored in later series, with Jesse, James, and Meowth returning to their more familiar roles as lovable failures whose schemes inevitably went wrong. Their motto recitations became increasingly elaborate and theatrical over time, sometimes including special effects, costume changes, and even musical numbers. The XY series featured particularly dramatic motto sequences, with the trio posing against stylized backgrounds and incorporating their Pokémon into the presentation. These moments were usually played for comedy, with Ash and his friends growing impatient during the lengthy introductions, but they became beloved by fans as essential parts of the Team Rocket experience. The care and creativity put into these sequences showed that the production team understood these characters were fan favorites deserving of special attention. Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket, had a complicated relationship with the trio. In most episodes, he barely acknowledged their existence, viewing them as bumbling failures unworthy of his attention. However, occasional episodes showed that Giovanni did recognize their persistence and loyalty, even if he found their methods questionable. His Persian, the sleek cat Pokémon, always by his side, served as a contrast to Meowth. Both were the same species, but Persian was elegant and sophisticated, while Meowth was scrappy and street smart. This parallel reinforced the class divisions within Team Rocket itself. The financial struggles of Jesse, James, and Meowth provided ongoing comedy, but also pathos. They were often shown living in poverty, going hungry, and resorting to part time jobs to fund their schemes. Episodes frequently featured them working at restaurants, manning food stalls, or taking temporary employment while secretly planning to steal Pokemon from whatever establishment employed them. Their dedication to Team Rocket, despite receiving no salary, no support from headquarters, and no recognition from their leader, spoke to their need for purpose and belonging more than any actual criminal ambition. Jesse's pursuit of success as a Pokemon coordinator in the Hoenn and Sinnoh regions added dimension to her character. She competed in contests under various disguises to avoid recognition, initially cheating with technological assistance, but eventually competing fairly and demonstrating genuine talent. While she never won a grand festival, her contest battles showcased her skills as a trainer and her Pokemon's trust in her. These episodes allowed Jessie to be more than just a villain. She was someone with dreams and talents who'd been dealt a difficult hand in life and made questionable choices as a result. The relationship dynamics within the trio sparked much fan speculation over the years. Were Jesse and James romantically involved? The anime deliberately kept this ambiguous, showing deep friendship and loyalty, but never explicitly confirming romance. In the Electric Tale of Pikachu manga, which took a different approach to the anime's storylines, Jessie and James were shown married with Jessie pregnant, but this was not considered canon to the anime. The anime itself seemed content to leave their relationship undefined, focusing instead on their partnership and mutual support. Team Rocket's gadgets and machines became increasingly elaborate as the series progressed, starting with simple disguises and eventually incorporating giant robots, transformation devices, and complex traps. Their Meowth shaped hot air balloon became iconic, appearing in countless episodes as their primary mode of transportation. The balloon's design was simultaneously cute and ridiculous, perfectly capturing the essence of these villains who were threatening enough to drive the plot, but never so dangerous that they couldn't be defeated by the end of each episode. The recurring joke of the balloon being destroyed and then mysteriously repaired for the next episode was never explained, becoming one of the anime's accepted absurdities. Their blasting off catchphrase, used whenever they were defeated and sent flying into the distance, became so iconic that it transcended the show itself. The sight of Jessie, James, and Meowth disappearing into the sky with the twinkle of a star became a cultural touchstone, referenced and parodied in other media. The physics of how they survived these frequent explosive departures was never questioned. It was simply accepted that they were durable enough to withstand repeated launches into the stratosphere and would return, battered but unbroken, in the next episode. The trio's brief departures from the main series always felt significant. When they weren't in episodes, something felt missing, even though their schemes followed predictable patterns. Their absence in certain arcs or movies created a noticeable void, demonstrating how integral they'd become to the viewing experience. When they returned after any absence, it felt like a homecoming, their familiar motto and antics providing comfort through consistency. Team Rocket's interactions with other Pokémon often revealed the kinder side of their characters. In numerous episodes, they helped Pokémon in need, protected them from danger, or chose to let them go rather than capture them if it meant the Pokémon's happiness. These moments of genuine compassion conflicted with their stated goal of stealing Pokémon, but aligned with their established characterization as fundamentally good people who'd ended up on the wrong path. The anime never shied away from this complexity, presenting them as sympathetic antagonists rather than pure villains. Their obsession with capturing Pikachu specifically, rather than any of the numerous other powerful Pokemon they encountered, was addressed metatextually in several episodes. Characters would question why Team Rocket fixated on this one Pikachu when others were available, and Meowth would explain that Ash's Pikachu had proven itself extraordinarily powerful, making it a worthy prize. The truth, of course, was that pursuing Pikachu gave them an excuse to stay together as a team and continue their adventures, even if they never actually wanted to succeed. Their failure had become comfortable, their rivalry with Ash a relationship that gave their lives structure and meaning. In the Journeys series' final episodes featuring Team Rocket, the trio finally achieved a measure of success and recognition from Giovanni before choosing to step back from Ash's story. Their departure from the series felt earned after 25 years of persistence, giving them a graceful exit while leaving open the possibility of return. The anime's transition to Pokemon Horizons with new protagonists meant Jessie, James, and Meowth's chase of Ash and Pikachu had truly come to an end, marking the close of an era. Ash's Pikachu remained the central focus throughout the anime's run, never evolving despite numerous opportunities and pressures to do so. The decision to keep Pikachu in its base form was both a practical choice for merchandising and a thematic statement about accepting oneself. Pikachu didn't need to evolve to be strong. It was perfect as it was, and Ash respected that. This refusal of the typically expected progression path became a defining trait, showing that the anime valued individuality over conforming to expectations. The bond between Ash and Pikachu, established in the first episode, when Pikachu finally trusted Ash enough to defend him from attacking Spearow, deepened through countless battles and adventures. Pikachu's electrical attacks grew more powerful over time, and its battle intelligence increased to the point where it could fight effectively even against Pokemon with type advantages. The trust between them allowed for quick adaptations during battles, with Pikachu understanding Ash's strategies often before he fully articulated them. Pikachu's emotional moments provided some of the anime's most memorable scenes. In Pikachu's Goodbye, when Ash considered leaving Pikachu with a group of wild Pikachu so it could be with its own kind, Pikachu's choice to stay with Ash reaffirmed their bond. In Pokémon, the first movie, Pikachu's slap fight with its clone and subsequent desperate attempt to revive the stone turned Ash showed the depth of their connection. These moments elevated Pikachu from mascot to fully realized character with emotional complexity. The episodes focusing on Pikachu specifically, such as Pikachu's Vacation and various Pikachu shorts that accompanied the movies, explored its personality and relationships with other Pokemon. These shorts were often dialogue free or featured only Pokemon communication, creating a different viewing experience that emphasized body language and emotion. The Pikachu shorts showcased the character's playful nature, loyalty to friends, and occasional mischievous streak, fleshing out aspects of its personality that couldn't be fully explored in regular episodes where human characters drove the narrative. Ash's other Pokemon throughout his journey each had distinct personalities and storylines. His Charizard's evolution from loyal Charmander to disobedient Charmeleon to eventually faithful Charizard provided one of the longest character arcs in the series. The Charmander he rescued from the rock, where Damien had abandoned it, became his most powerful partner, but only after they'd worked through trust issues caused by Charizard's pride and Ash's inexperience. When Charizard was left at the Cherisific Valley to train with other Charizard in the episode Charizard's Burning Ambitions, it marked the maturation of their relationship. Ash let Charizard go because it was best for the Pokemon's growth, and Charizard's later returns for important battles showed that their bond remained strong despite the distance. Ash's Sceptile in the Advanced Generation series dealt with an inability to use attacks after losing a battle to a trainer's melodic it had feelings for, a storyline that explored the psychological aspects of Pokemon training. The arc showed that emotional trauma could affect battle performance, and recovery required patience and support from a caring trainer. Skeptile eventually overcame this block and became one of Ash's most reliable team members in the Battle Frontier challenges. Greninja in the XY series developed a unique phenomenon called bond phenomenon, where it transformed to resemble Ash, taking on some of his physical characteristics and receiving a significant power boost. This form, later officially recognized in the Sun and Moon games as Ash Greninja, represented the ultimate expression of the trainer Pokemon bond that the anime had always emphasized. Greninja's eventual departure to help destroy the remaining roots of the evil plant spreading through Kalos was bittersweet, showing that sometimes loving a Pokemon means letting it fulfill its purpose, even if that means separation. The companions who traveled with Ash brought diverse perspectives on what it meant to be a Pokemon trainer. Misty's focus on water types and her dream of becoming a water Pokemon master was never clearly defined, which made it difficult to show her making progress toward this goal. However, her knowledge of water type Pokemon frequently proved valuable, and her fear of bug types provided ongoing comedy while also showing that even gym leaders had weaknesses and personal challenges to overcome. Brock's dream of becoming a Pokemon breeder and later a Pokemon doctor drove his character development across multiple regions. His knowledge of Pokemon care and medicine made him the team's medic and voice of experience. Brock's tendency to fall instantly in love with every girl he met became a running gag that some viewers found endearing and others found tiresome, but it was consistently part of his character throughout his time on the show. His cooking skills and ability to care for young Pokemon added practical value to the group dynamics. May's journey from someone who barely knew anything about Pokemon to a skilled coordinator showed significant character growth. Her initial reason for becoming a trainer, wanting to travel and see the world, was refreshingly honest compared to the typical passionate declarations about becoming the best. Her discovery of Pokemon contests as her true calling happened organically through exposure and experimentation, modeling how young people often find their passions through experience rather than predetermined destiny. May's relationship with her Pokemon, especially her starter Torchic, who evolved into Combusken and eventually Blaziken, showed her growth as a trainer alongside her Pokemon's physical evolution. Dawn's storyline in Diamond and Pearl explored the pressure of living up to parental expectations, as her mother Johanna was a famous coordinator. Dawn's catchphrase, "No need to worry," was revealed to be advice her mother had given her, which she repeated to herself as encouragement. When Dawn experienced a losing streak and began doubting herself, her journey through that crisis felt realistic and relatable. The resolution, where she regained her confidence not through sudden victory, but through perseverance and support from friends, taught valuable lessons about resilience. The anime's treatment of gender roles evolved over its run. Early seasons featured moments that haven't aged well, with female characters occasionally portrayed as primarily interested in fashion or romance. However, later series featured strong female characters like Iris, who was skilled in dragon type training and eventually became a regional champion, and Serena, who pursued her goal of becoming a Pokemon performer with determination and skill. The female gym leaders and Elite Four members throughout the film series consistently demonstrated competence and power, showing that strength wasn't gender determined in the Pokemon world. The Pokemon contests introduced in the Advanced Generation series provided an alternative to battling that emphasized beauty, style, and performance. This edition enriched the world building by showing that Pokemon training encompassed more than combat prowess. The contests required different skills, creativity in combining moves for visual appeal, understanding of rhythm and presentation, and the ability to showcase a Pokemon's unique qualities. Coordinators like May, Dawn, and even Jessie demonstrated that success in contests required just as much dedication and talent as success in battles. The anime's battles evolved in complexity and animation quality over time. Early Kanto battles were relatively simple, often featuring Pokemon trading attacks until one fainted. As the series progressed, battles incorporated terrain use, strategy, combination attacks, and battlefield control. The Diamond and Pearl series particularly emphasized battle tactics, with Paul's calculated approach contrasting with Ash's intuition based style. This philosophical divide about whether Pokemon should be treated as strategic assets or partners made their rivalry more substantive than simple competitive spirit. Gym battles followed a formula, but each gym leader brought unique challenges that tested different aspects of training. Sabrina's psychic gym required Ash to find creative ways to combat telekinesis and confusion attacks. Blaine's quiz based challenge at Cinnabar Island tested knowledge alongside battle skill. Norman's Petalburg gym featured his patient, analytical style that contrasted with his daughter May's more impulsive approach. These gym battles weren't just obstacles on the path to the league, they were lessons that helped Ash grow as a trainer. The Pokemon Leagues at the end of each regional arc provided tournament style competition that showed Ash's progress. His defeats in these tournaments were often controversial among fans who wanted to see him win, but they served narrative purposes. Each loss taught Ash something about his training approach or highlighted areas where he needed to improve. His eventual victory in the Alola League felt monumental precisely because of his previous failures. It proved that persistence and growth could eventually lead to success. The relationship between humans and Pokemon remained the anime's central theme throughout its run. Episodes regularly explored different facets of this bond. The trainer who pushed their Pokemon too hard, the Pokemon who protected humans despite personal danger, the complex choice of whether to release a Pokemon for its own good, and the communication between species that transcended language. The anime consistently portrayed the ideal trainer as someone who respected their Pokemon as individuals and partners rather than tools or property. Wild Pokemon were shown to have their own societies and behaviors independent of humans. Episodes featuring wild Pokemon colonies, such as the Pikachu Forest or the Larvitar Den, depicted complex social structures and family units. These episodes reminded viewers that Pokemon existed as creatures with their own lives and motivations, not just potential captures waiting to happen. The ethics of capturing wild Pokemon were occasionally questioned, with some episodes showing trainers who chose not to capture certain Pokemon out of respect for their wild lives. The anime's approach to legendary Pokemon evolved from treating them as mysterious, almost godlike beings to depicting them more as powerful individuals with personalities and motivations. Early legendary encounters were reverential, with these Pokemon appearing briefly as awe inspiring forces of nature. Later episodes and movies showed legendary Pokemon forming bonds with specific trainers, having conflicts with other legendaries, and possessing distinct personalities. This shift made the world feel more alive and complex, where even the most powerful beings were characters rather than just mythical entities. The music of the Pokemon anime created an audio identity as recognizable as its visuals. Shinji Miyazaki's compositions for the Japanese version established musical themes for different situations. The energetic battle theme that got the blood pumping, the tender moment music that accompanied emotional scenes, the ominous Team Rocket approach theme that signaled their imminent appearance, and the triumphant victory theme that played after gym badge wins. These musical cues became so associated with specific emotions and situations that hearing them instantly evoked memories of countless episodes. The animation quality varied considerably across the anime's long run, with some episodes featuring notably better animation than others due to different animation directors and studios handling different episodes. Certain episodes became famous for their exceptional animation, such as the Sinnoh League battle between Ash and Paul, which featured fluid movement and dynamic camera work that elevated the stakes. Other episodes used more limited animation to maintain production schedules, resulting in more static shots and simpler movements. This inconsistency was a reality of long running anime production, where maintaining quality across hundreds of episodes proved challenging. The voice acting performances brought these characters to life across multiple languages and cultures. The Japanese cast's long tenure with their characters allowed for nuanced performances that evolved with the characters. The English dub went through multiple cast changes, each bringing different interpretations while trying to maintain consistency. Other language dubs around the world created their own versions, sometimes taking liberties with dialogue or characterization to better suit local audiences. Pokemon anime became a truly global phenomenon, in part because these various dubs made it accessible to viewers worldwide, each adding their own cultural flavor while maintaining the core story. Ash's character development over 25 years was subtle and sometimes inconsistent due to the episodic nature of the series, but examining his journey as a whole reveals significant growth. The impulsive, sometimes arrogant boy who started his journey barely able to control Pikachu became a world champion who commanded respect from trainers worldwide. His emotional intelligence developed alongside his battle skills, with later series showing him as someone who could mentor younger trainers, understand Pokemon emotions intuitively, and maintain composure in high pressure situations. While each regional arc sometimes reset certain aspects of his knowledge for narrative convenience, his core growth from inexperienced child to accomplished trainer remained evident. The anime's educational elements taught viewers about friendship, perseverance, respecting nature, and accepting differences. These lessons were usually delivered through story rather than direct moralizing, making them more effective. Episodes about accepting Pokemon who looked different, helping those in need regardless of personal benefit, and finding peaceful solutions to conflicts conveyed values without feeling preachy. The show's consistent message that bonds built on trust and mutual respect were stronger than those built on power or fear resonated across cultures and age groups. The regional settings of each series were inspired by real world locations, with research teams visiting these places to capture their essence. Kanto and Johto drew from various Japanese regions, featuring traditional architecture, cultural festivals, and landscapes familiar to Japanese viewers. Hoenn was inspired by Kyushu, incorporating volcanic areas and tropical elements. Sinnoh took inspiration from Hokkaido, featuring snow covered routes and mountainous terrain. Unova was based on New York City and the broader United States, marking the first time the anime ventured outside Japan inspired settings. Kalos represented France with its elegant architecture and cafe culture. Alola drew from Hawaii with its island setting, tropical climate, and emphasis on community and tradition. Galar represented the United Kingdom with its countryside and industrial cities. This geographical diversity kept the series feeling fresh while teaching viewers about different cultures and environments. The localization of Pokemon for different markets involved more than just translation. Cultural references were adapted to make sense to local audiences. Food items were changed from rice balls to sandwiches in early English dubs. Japanese text on signs was either erased or replaced with English. Some episodes' plots were slightly modified to avoid cultural confusion. The localization teams walked a fine line between making the show accessible and preserving its Japanese identity, with the balance shifting over time as Western audiences became more comfortable with Japanese cultural elements remaining intact. The merchandising tie ins with the anime were extensive and sophisticated. New Pokemon often debuted in the anime before appearing in games, creating hype for upcoming releases. Event distributions allowed viewers to receive special Pokemon featured in movies by visiting theaters or participating in promotional events. Trading cards often featured artwork and moments from the anime, bridging the gap between different media. The anime essentially served as a massive advertisement for the broader franchise, but it did so while maintaining narrative integrity and emotional resonance that kept viewers invested beyond mere consumption. The filler episodes, those not directly advancing the main plot of gym challenges and league competitions often became fan favorites because they allowed for character development and exploration of the Pokemon world without the pressure of advancing toward a specific goal. Episodes where the group helped a local community solve a problem, where they encountered unusual Pokemon situations, or where character relationships were explored, provided breathing room between major story arcs. Some viewers dismissed these episodes as skippable, but they contributed to the lived in feeling of the world and the sense that adventures they happened constantly, not just during gym battles. The tournament arcs beyond the regional leagues added variety to the competition format. The Battle Frontier in Kanto featured 7 unique facilities, each testing different battle styles and strategies. The World Coronation series in Journeys created a global ranking system, allowing trainers from all regions to compete. The Pokemon World Tournament in various locations brought together gym leaders and champions from multiple regions. These alternative competition structures acknowledged that battling prowess could be measured in various ways, not just through traditional gym and league systems. The Pokemon Centers and their Nurse Joys became comforting constants across all regions. The running joke that every Nurse Joy looked identical and was somehow related to every other Nurse Joy was never seriously explained, creating a whimsical element that viewers accepted without question. Similarly, Officer Jenny's appeared in every town, each looking nearly identical to her relatives. These recurring character designs created familiarity and consistency. No matter where Ash traveled, he could rely on finding healing for his Pokemon and law enforcement to help with problems. The Nurse Joy and Officer Jenny families represented stability in a world of constant travel and adventure. The episode structure followed predictable patterns, especially in early seasons, but this formula provided comfort. Episodes typically featured the group arriving in a new location, meeting locals with a problem, encountering Team Rocket's scheme, resolving both issues, and moving on. While this structure became formulaic, it created a rhythm that young viewers could follow easily, and the variations within the formula provided enough novelty to maintain interest. Later seasons experimented more with structure, featuring multi episode arcs, nonlinear storytelling, and deviations from expected patterns. The holiday specials and themed episodes celebrated various festivals and traditions from both Japanese and Western cultures. Christmas episodes featured Delibird and Stantler, connecting Pokemon to holiday iconography. Summer festival episodes showcased traditional Japanese celebrations with fireworks and yukata. These special episodes often had slightly higher animation budgets and featured memorable moments that stood out from regular episodes. They also provided an opportunities to explore cultural traditions through the lens of the Pokemon world, showing how holidays might be celebrated in a universe where magical creatures existed. The evolution moments for Ash's Pokemon were treated as significant events, often occurring during emotional or critical moments in battles. Caterpie's evolution into Metapod and then Butterfree happened early and established the pattern. Chimchar's evolution into Monferno and then Infernape was tied to Paul's abusive training methods and Ash's contrasting approach, making the evolution both a power up and a statement about proper Pokemon care. Greninja's transformation to Ash Greninja, while not technically an evolution, represented the culmination of their bond. These evolution moments were carefully placed within the narrative to maximize their emotional and symbolic impact. The series' approach to death and loss was careful but not completely sanitized. While Pokemon rarely died on screen, the implications of loss were present. Ash's Haunter staying in Saffron City to be with Sabrina represented a kind of permanent farewell. Latios's apparent death in Pokemon Heroes was handled with gravity and sadness. Stoutland's passing in the Sun and Moon series, shown through Litton's grief, directly addressed death in a way that was age appropriate but emotionally honest. These moments acknowledged that loss was part of life and that feeling sadness was natural and important. The relationship between Pokemon and their natural environments was explored through episodes about pollution, habitat destruction, and the balance of ecosystems. Episodes where Pokemon acted aggressively because their homes were threatened taught about the importance of environmental conservation. The anime's message that humans and Pokemon could coexist harmoniously only if humans respected nature and its creatures reflected real world environmental concerns, making these episodes both entertaining and quietly educational about ecological responsibility. The time loop episode in the Orange Islands, where Ash and friends experienced the same events repeatedly, showed the anime's willingness to experiment with more complex narrative structures. While ultimately a one off episode, it demonstrated that the writers could tackle sophisticated concepts when they chose to. Similarly, episodes featuring dream sequences, alternate realities, or time travel added variety to the typically straightforward storytelling, showing that the Pokemon world had room for more imaginative narratives beyond the journey structure. The battles against wild Pokemon differed from trainer battles in important ways. Wild Pokemon fought to protect territory or young, adding moral complexity to the act of catching them. Some episodes questioned whether trainers had the right to capture any Pokemon they encountered, with certain wild Pokemon being portrayed as better off left in their natural habitats. Ash's decision not to catch certain Pokemon he encountered, respecting their wild lives, showed maturity and understanding that not every Pokemon needed or wanted to be trained. The multi episode arcs in later seasons allowed for more complex storytelling than single episode adventures. The Team Plasma storyline in Best Wishes, despite being disrupted and shortened, attempted to explore questions about whether Pokemon should be owned by humans at all. The Team Flare arc in XY built tension over multiple episodes before the climactic confrontation. These extended narratives provided depth and allowed characters to develop across multiple episodes rather than resetting at the end of each one. The crossover appearances of characters from different series created moments of fan service and nostalgia. When Misty and Brock visited Alola and met Ash's new classmates, it bridged different eras of the show. May's appearance during Diamond and Pearl to compete alongside Dawn in the Wallace Cup united two generations of coordinators. These crossovers acknowledged the show's long history and rewarded longtime viewers while introducing classic characters to new audiences. The Pokemon showcased in the anime often influenced their popularity in the games and broader franchise. Charizard's prominence and Ash's team elevated it to icon status, despite being one of many final evolution starter Pokemon. Lucario became a fan favorite, partially due to its starring role in its titular movie. Greninja's popularity skyrocketed after its appearances with Ash, leading to it consistently ranking highly in popularity polls. The anime had the power to take Pokemon that might otherwise be overlooked and transform them into beloved characters through thoughtful storytelling and screen time. The mentor figures that appeared throughout Ash's journey provided guidance and perspective. Professor Oak served as a distant mentor, offering advice when needed but allowing Ash independence. Gym leaders like Brock and Silent, who joined Ash's travels, provided constant mentorship. Battle Frontier Brains and regional champions demonstrated higher levels of skill to aspire toward. These mentors represented different approaches to training and different life philosophies, exposing Ash to diverse perspectives that shaped his own developing approach. The Pokemon training schools that occasionally appeared in episodes showed formal education approaches, contrasting with Ash's hands on learning. These episodes explored different paths to becoming a trainer. Some learned through structured courses, while others, like Ash, learned through experience. Neither approach was portrayed as inherently superior, acknowledging that different learning styles worked for different people. The schools also provided context for the world's structure, showing that Pokemon training was both a profession and a cultural institution with formal and informal pathways. The regional variants and form differences introduced in later generations were incorporated into the anime to showcase these new designs. Alolan forms of Kanto Pokemon appeared throughout the Sun and Moon series, with episodes explaining how environmental factors led to these different appearances. Galarian forms were featured in Journeys. These episodes tied into broader themes about adaptation and diversity, using Pokemon variants as metaphors for how species and individuals adapt to different environments and circumstances. The mega evolution phenomenon was extensively explored in the XY series through special episodes and story arcs. The concept that certain Pokemon could temporarily evolve beyond their final forms through strong bonds with their trainers aligned perfectly with the anime's emphasis on the human Pokemon relationship. The mysterious nature of Mega Evolution, its connection to ancient history, and the physical and emotional strain it could place on both Pokemon and trainers added depth to what could have been just another battle gimmick. Alan's storyline running parallel to Ash's XY journey provided different perspectives on using Mega Evolution. The Z moves in the Sun and Moon series incorporated physical poses and dances that trainers performed to activate these powerful attacks. This cultural element drew from real Hawaiian traditions while adding visual spectacle to battles. The requirement that trainers and their Pokemon move in sync emphasized their connection and teamwork. The variety of Z move types From offensive attacks to status effects to unique signature moves for certain Pokémon, provided tactical depth while maintaining the theatrical flair that made them entertaining to watch. The Dynamax and Gigantamax phenomena in the Galar region featured Pokémon growing to massive sizes during battles in special stadiums. The spectacle of these giant Pokémon facing off created unique battle dynamics and visual experiences different from previous battle mechanics. The connection between Dynamax energy and specific locations in Galar added lore depth, suggesting that the phenomenon arose from the region's unique environmental properties. These regional battle mechanics kept the series feeling fresh and aligned with the concurrent game releases while serving narrative purposes beyond simple power ups. The bond between humans and Pokemon manifested in various special abilities beyond standard evolution. Ash's aura abilities, revealed in Lucario, and the mystery of Mew suggested he had latent psychic connections to Pokemon. Some trainers demonstrated ability to sense their Pokemon's feelings or locations. These rare abilities emphasized that exceptional trainers didn't just command their Pokemon, but connected with them on deeper levels. The anime suggested that while anyone could become a trainer, the strongest bonds came from genuine empathy and understanding. The aging question, why characters didn't seem to age despite years passing, was one the anime never directly addressed. Ash remained 10 years old for 25 years of storytelling, with his companions similarly suspended in time. Some episodes referenced previous adventures, establishing continuity, but the characters' physical ages remained static. This agelessness allowed the show to continue indefinitely without dealing with characters growing up and moving beyond their Pokemon journeys, though it created the amusing situation where Ash had decades of experience despite supposedly being a young child. The various opening themes across different regions and generations became musical time capsules, instantly evoking memories of specific eras of the show. Hearing an opening theme from childhood could transport viewers back to Saturday mornings watching before school, to afternoons after homework, to evenings with family. The music became intertwined with memories beyond the show itself, becoming part of personal histories for millions of viewers worldwide. The power of these theme songs to evoke nostalgia and emotion spoke to how deeply the anime embedded itself in viewers' lives. As you drift off to sleep tonight, perhaps you'll dream of walking down routes with tall grass, of camping under stars with your partner Pokemon beside you, of challenging gym leaders and exploring new regions. The world of Pokemon continues to grow and evolve, but the memories and feelings it created remain constant. A warm nostalgia for Saturday morning cartoons, trading cards on the playground, and the simple joy of adventure. These stories of voices bringing characters to life, episodes crafted with care despite tight schedules, characters who grew deeper with each appearance, and a franchise that touched millions of hearts across the world form a narrative bigger than any single episode or season. They represent decades of creativity, dedication, and the simple magic of storytelling well done. If tonight's journey brought you some peace or sparked a memory you'd forgotten, a simple like helps others find these calm explorations too. And when you're ready for more gentle journeys through the world of Pokemon, you'll find an entire playlist of Pokemon facts to fall asleep to waiting on the end screen to your left. Rest well, and may your dreams be filled with wonder.